Well, hello, and I want to start this episode with a couple of questions. Are you the person that people come to when they're in a jam? Are you kind of the fixer when people are in trouble? Are you highly capable? Like you actually know how to get stuff done? Do you find yourself over-functioning or doing more than your share in your relationships? In today's video, that's exactly what I'm going to be handling. I'm going to teach you the difference between over and under functioning and optional functioning. What does that look like? I'm going to break down the characteristics of high functioning codependency because I have a feeling that is at the root of the problem. And I'm going to give you some steps that you can take to have better boundaries, better self-care, and to over-function less in your relationships. If you are new to this channel, welcome. I'm so happy that you are here. Please introduce yourself below because I always read all the comments. I love this community so much. Please make sure that you are subscribed and that you hit the bell so that you get notified whenever a new episode is available. If you don't know me, my name is Terri Cole and I'm the author of Boundary Boss, which you can get at boundarybossbook.com. Just thank you so much for being here and for leaving your comments and for caring about your mental health. You really are my people. Today, I want to highlight viewer Robin Lynn. So she wrote a comment on boundaries and friends. It's complicated, which is something that I did recently. And Robin says, this is so spot on. I can completely relate to everything you just said in this episode. I've had so many friends who love to be around so they can really just emotionally dump on me. It is so incredibly draining, but this video, your book, and my own work has helped me to learn to not be available that much and to start creating more boundaries. I definitely have work to do, but I'm so grateful for your work. This is such an important topic. Thank you for all that you're doing. Well, I want to say thank you, Robin Lynn. I super appreciate you being here. Before we get started, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so that you don't miss a thing. Okay, so we're going to start with high-functioning codependency. So what is it? Let's just start there. So this is behavior that includes disordered boundaries where you are overly invested in the feeling states, the decisions, the outcomes, the circumstances of the people in your life to the detriment of your own internal peace, maybe your financial well-being, maybe your physical well-being. So let's be clear. As lovers, as caring people, we're all invested in what goes on in the lives of the people that we care about. High-functioning codependency, and codependency itself, means that you are overly invested. How you can tell if you're overly invested is I want you to check your own urgency. If your partner, if your friend, if your sibling comes to you and is in a jam, in a situation, how urgent does their situation feel to you? Does it actually feel like your problem to fix? Because if you're nodding your head or this is resonating with you, then that is definitely codependency. I made the distinction years ago and created a new name, which is high-functioning codependency, because my incredibly capable clients did not identify with the old school terminology of codependency. Because back in the day, it seemed like to be codependent, you had to be involved with an addict of some kind. You had to be enabling someone who was addicted to drugs or alcohol. That was the assumption because Melody Beattie's seminal text, Codependent No More, became very popular, and it was from that perspective initially. So when I became a psychotherapist and in my own life, I never identified with being codependent, although I was, because I wasn't involved necessarily with addicts. So with my therapy clients, once I became a therapist, I had these incredibly capable women in particular coming to me, and I would describe, what they're telling me. I would say, hey, what you're describing is codependent behavior. And they would be like, dude, no, you have no idea what you're talking about. I'm the one that does everything. Everyone is dependent on me. I'm making all the money. I'm the go-to person. And I was like, oh, they just don't understand what codependency is. So when you are a high-functioning codependent, in a way, you make it look easy. You may be very successful in business. You may be running a household, raising kids, taking care of aging parents, and people look at you like you have it all together. And yet, there is a cost if what you're doing in your relationships is over functioning. So this is one very important part of codependency, is doing more than your share. So I'm going to break down, what does it mean to function optimally in life? Like what does that actually look like? Well, it means that you can get things done, right? You follow through, you keep your word, you meet your deadlines, right? Just a normal way of being able to deliver and show up in your own life without over-promising, without over-delivering as well. Meaning doing more than your share, more than you're asked to do, more than is required of you. A lot of us, and this is where overfunctioning comes in, we do things people don't even ask us to do. So that's optimal functioning, right? You're not stretching yourself too thin. You're getting things done. You have enough time to take care of yourself in life. That is optimal functioning. Underfunctioning. So what is that? This describes people who are not living to their potential. Maybe they're not keeping their word. They might be falling down on the obligations that they make to others. They have a tendency, underfunctioners, to find their way to be in relationships with overfunctioners. And you can see how that makes sense, right? If you have someone who's like, I got it, I got it, I got it, someone else who leans towards underfunctioning or allowing others to do things for them is like, great, you got it, one less thing for me to do. So, thinking about overfunctioning, again, these are boundary issues because we're taking responsibility for things that are actually not on our side of the street, right? It's very important for you to function optimally in life, for you to not be playing out high functioning codependency. You have to be really clear about what are your responsibilities. What is your right? So let's think about it this way. If you are, when I was very active as a codependent in my 20s, I was the person that everyone came to with their problems. I thought this was the way to be, right? This was like my purpose in life. I didn't realize that I was overstepping other people's boundaries. I was the quintessential auto advice giver to anybody. And trust me, this wasn't just limited to people in my life. It could be like my hair colorist, my mailman, anybody. If they were like, I have a question for you, or I'm in a situation, I'm like, I have an idea. I have a thought. I know this organization. I'll email you. Like, I just literally couldn't stop doing it. I had no idea how dysfunctional it was. But what I can say about over and under functioning is that it creates tons of resentment in relationships from both people, from both parties. It's not just like the underfunctioner, quote unquote, wants to underfunction. A lot of times, the overfunctioner, the person doing more than their share, is really, when you come to codependency, whether it's high functioning codependency or any other codependency, at its core, codependent behavior is an overt or a covert bid for control. Think about it. We want to control the decisions, even if your heart is in the right place and your friend is making a terrible decision according to you. You thinking they shouldn't do it, telling them to get into therapy, wanting them to break up with their partner, whatever the thing is. Even if you're quote unquote right, you're not right because you're not on your side of the street. So for me personally, this was a very hard won lesson. It took a long time because it was such habitual behavior for me to overfunction. I'm naturally an extrovert. I'm naturally a lover. I care about people, even if I barely know you. So all of those things were like the perfect storm for me to be overfunctioning in a lot of places in my life. But this came for me at a very high cost. And if you're doing this, trust me, this is coming at a very high cost for you too. You might feel exhausted emotionally, physically. You might feel burnt out. Just burnt out, trying to maintain this impossible workload. It's like we're living and behaving as if we have endless bandwidth. That is not true. As human beings, we all have a limit to our bandwidth, to what we can give and really give. And here's the thing. When it's codependency, remember, we're bidding for control, which means that our actions are fear-based. So it's not giving from a place of love, even if you love the person, right? If you feel compelled, right? If it's a compulsion to try to make them avoid that problem or fix whatever issue they're in, that is a compulsion. That is not something that is driven by love. So there's only so long that you can do this, without there being, what I would see in my therapy practice is that women in particular would be coming in and they would be exhausted. They would feel like they had autoimmune disorders. They would be so tired. Their lack of self-care was so profound in a way because they were always last on their own list, that it would be something else that drove them into therapy. So it's typical to a degree that you'll find high-functioning codependents in the healing arts, right? I had a client that I share about in Boundary Boss, the book right there, that, she was a trauma ER nurse. Like, could that be any more perfect of a job, where she was constantly overfunctioning and overgiving, but she also worked all of this overtime voluntarily. She was last on her own list in life. She was in unhealthy or abusive relationships. Again, all going back to her own self-worth. But what we realized is that these were all massively disordered boundaries, and this confusion about how to love other people. She thought if she didn't do all of these things, she wouldn't be loved. And of course, then her low self-esteem had her attracting partners who agreed, like, you are utilitarian, do things for me, and if you don't, then I'm leaving, basically. So there's a lot of us are in, become therapists, become psychiatrists, become nurses, doctors, dentists, massage therapists, yoga teachers. I mean, you know who you are, people, and you know why you're here. And that isn't to say that your heart isn't in the right place. But if you really want to be an effective leader, if you really want to be an effective change maker, right? That's really what all of us in this any kind of an industry like this, we want to do. We want to help people heal, right? More joy, less pain. But if you want to be effective, you cannot be overfunctioning. Not for your clients, not for the people in your life. So how do we change this? Well, the first thing is awareness. This is the key to changing anything. And you have to look, right? And I created a whole downloadable guide for you. You're going to answer a bunch of questions so you can see really where are you in this mix? How bad do you have it? And what steps you can take. So we first are going to do a little bit of an inventory so you can see where are you overfunctioning the most. Is it at work? Is it in your friendships? Is it in your personal life? And then start to slowly but surely step back from doing things that are really not in your wheelhouse, what you shouldn't really be doing. learning to ask for help, learning to delegate. Because here's the thing, if everything you end up doing, you end up being resentful about, which is what happens ultimately. If we don't fix this high-functioning codependency, if you don't learn to function optimally, instead of over-functioning or under-functioning, right? Because you could be under-functioning as well. You're never going to create the life that you want, because that's having disordered boundaries. That is the definition. When we're talking about codependency, one of the definitions of being a high-functioning or any kind of codependent is that your boundaries are super blurred. You are confused about what is your side of the street and what is someone else's side of the street. But here's the thing. You can take all that's good about where you are right now, about your big, old, loving heart, and you can build on those things. And you can slowly but surely take these small steps towards ending these over-functioning habits. So I give you ideas in the downloadable guide, so make sure that you get that. You're going to take your inventory, and then you're going to pick a couple of things that you're going to just start stepping back from and seeing how it feels to not overfunction in your relationships and to allow other people to take care of themselves and add value to your life. Because this is one of the things when we're highly capable and highly codependent, is that we have a tendency to do everything by ourselves and for ourselves. Even if someone else asks to help us, we're like, we're good. I got it. That was like my mantra when I was in my 20s. But it also made me resentful because I was giving too much and not filling up my own bucket and not allowing anyone else to fill up my bucket. So I want to hear from you. Does this resonate with you? Do you feel like you're over-functioning? Do you feel like you're a high-functioning codependent? I'm interested always in what you have to say. So drop your comments. Let me know. If you like this episode, share it on social media. I'm on Instagram quite a bit. If you share it in your stories, I usually will reshare. I just so appreciate you, and I want you to create the happy, healthy life that you deserve. And that really means mastering the art of boundaries. So, thank you so much for spending time with me today. And as always, take care of you.